Once I was a cop, a road warrior, searching for a righteous cause. Hey guys, I'm back again, and today I'm here to talk once again about Furiosa. So the last video that I made was generally about the movie, what I liked about it, what I didn't like about it, sort of my review and how it compared to Fury Road. But this one's going to be a little bit different. So I'm actually going to split this one into two because I think that there's quite a lot to talk about. So both Fury Road and Furiosa are chock full of a bunch of historical and mythological symbolism. So if you're looking out for it, it's there. Me personally, I can't help but notice it, but I definitely wanted to talk about that. So let's start off with one of the scenes in Furiosa, and before I go any further, of course, major spoilers for Furiosa and of course Fury Road if you haven't seen it. So at some point in the movie, what's happening is that Dementus, the main antagonist of the movie, is riding on a 3-motorbike chariot, and he's literally controlling the motorbikes from the reins of the chariot. It looks pretty cool actually, and he's got a cape on as well. And quite interesting that a chariot, by the way, is also something that was from time to time used by the Romans, though also their enemies, including the Britons. So we'll start with that. So in one of the scenes, what happens is that Dementus is going and looking for the green place, or the place of many mothers, because he's gotten Furiosa and he's now trying to find this place of abundance. And he finds a war boy, and the war boy, funny enough, has like a stick, some sort of projectile in his head, and is asking, is this Valhalla? And of course, Dementus and his crew have no idea what Valhalla is or why they should be looking for it. And Valhalla is then defined by the history man that Dementus has with him, which is that it's a place of sort of abundance. It's an afterlife of sorts. And of course, Valhalla was mentioned in Fury Road as well, but it's the first time that you actually hear some sort of definition of it in Furiosa. And of course, if you don't know, Valhalla actually exists in Norse mythology. The funny thing about this is that the first time that I'd heard about Valhalla and the Valkyrie was from the video game Max Payne, if anyone remembers that, jumping around and firing dual-wielding pistols like it was a John Woo movie. But very briefly, Valhalla in Norse mythology, so the Vikings, was essentially a place where warriors who died in battle would go to some sort of afterlife where they would fight for all of eternity, and their battles would be watched by an audience, and they would be tended to by Valkyrie. I think they were also carried up to Valhalla by Valkyrie, which is interesting because I'm pretty sure that one of the Vuvalini is called Valkyrie in Fury Road. But yeah, just a nice little bit of sort of Viking history, Norse mythology that exists in both Fury Road and Furiosa. So going back to the Roman symbolism, the Roman historical references that you see in Fury Road and Furiosa. So I mentioned the 3-motorcycle chariot, which is great, by the way. It's such a fantastic idea. But we'll start with the word Praetorians. So when Furiosa is first on the war again, I don't think she's supposed to actually be on that war rig, the big shiny and chrome war rig, which looks amazing, by the way. I can't figure out if I like the black one from Fury Road or the shiny chrome one from Furiosa. But she's on the war rig, and of course the war rig is attacked by men in vehicles or motorbikes and even in the air, which is really, really cool. I think that's a cool idea that George Miller and Nicola Thoris had there. But it's attacked, and the war rig itself is being driven by Praetorian Jack. So Praetorian Jack kind of ends up acting as not just the love interest, but as a mentor to Furiosa, and teaches her essentially, you know, how to fight, how to use the war rig, and some other things. So he helps her become the Furiosa that we come to know in Fury Road. But if you know your Roman history, the Praetorians were actually set up by the first Roman emperor, Augustus. Sometimes, well, at one point he was known as Octavian, but Augustus was actually the adopted son and the biological nephew of Gaius Julius Caesar. So the Praetorians were actually a military unit in Rome that were beholden to the emperor himself, that's Augustus, and essentially acted as his personal bodyguard. They started off that way, at least under Augustus, but a couple of generations down the line, you start finding that the Praetorians are themselves taking part in Roman history, and at one point they even auction off the title of emperor to the highest bidder. So kind of a bit of a kind of a warning there to maybe don't have powerful military units in your capital city. It's maybe not such a good idea. But Praetorian Jack then ends up mentoring Furiosa, and at some point, she's been away for a while, but she comes back, and this bit was in the trailer. She screams, "I am Furiosa," but the bit after that she says is, "I am the Praetorian Furiosa." So she becomes a Praetorian. So you can see that there's a sort of a hierarchical structure in Immortan Joe's military with his war boys and the Praetorians. And above that you have the Imperators. So Imperator in Latin, Imperator was a title that you were given in Rome as a general. If you were a general that had a knack for winning battles, you would be called Imperator. Imperator literally means victorious general. And I remember watching Fury Road, and I have a great love of Roman history, if it isn't obvious, by the way, particularly the end of the Republic and the early Empire period. And when I heard her name, when I heard Immortan Joe near the beginning of the movie saying, "My Imperator Furiosa," it immediately clicked that, hey, that's a pretty badass name. Her name is essentially Victorious General Fury, which is pretty cool. And of course, she lives up to that name. I remember watching Rome, the HBO BBC TV show, which came out in the mid 2000s, and I learned that term actually from Rome Total War, if anyone has ever played Rome Total War. But I remember that Gaius Julius Caesar in one of the episodes is introduced as commander of the Gallic legions, Imperator Julius Caesar. So just another bit of Roman history that Nicola Thoris and George Miller, I don't know whose idea it was, to insert these references to the Romans. And there's a bit more than that, and I'll delve a bit more into Red Dementis in the second video that I make on this topic. But there's a moment where Dementis comes across this war boy. He's got the thing in his head. He's asking, "Is this Valhalla?" And somebody ends up firing one of those red flares that you also saw in Fury Road, and he gets covered in red. His beard, his goggles, his hair, his cape, his everything is red. And I think there's a bit more symbolism going on here than just Roman. But very briefly, he goes to the citadel. That's Red Dementis with his 50 or so bikers, and begins speaking to the people. Essentially speaking what sounds like sort of a populares. So the populares were a faction in ancient Roman politics who tried to get more of their power from the plebeians, the sort of the masses, the regular folk on the street, in opposition to the optimates, who were the traditional Roman aristocracy who got their power from their peers in the aristocracy and cared a little bit less, shall we say, about the plebeian, the common man on the street. So I thought that was very interesting that that Dementis then gives a speech about saying to the sort of unwashed masses, the people that are living outside of the citadel, that, you know, these people at the top, referring to Morton Joe and his allies, that they don't really care about you, but I, you know, Red Dementis, will stand up for you because I care about the common man. So I thought that was quite interesting. There's a bit of sort of Popularis and Optimates. I don't think that's the only thing that's going on there in that scene, but of course I'll go into that in the next video. Finally, there was a reference to, I think, Greek history. There's a moment where Dementus ends up hijacking a war rig and then hides his soldiers, his men in the war rig, and then ends up, you know, using the war rig to get into Gastown. And then, of course, they climb out of the war rig. They're using it as a literal Trojan horse. They slay the men on the walls and demand that they open the gates so that Dementus can allow the rest of his soldiers in on their motorbikes, and he ends up capturing Gastown. But I thought that was quite interesting. There's a lot of sort of Norse, Greek, Roman historical and mythological references, and I just wanted to talk about that. I wondered if, am I the only one that noticed this? I'm guessing not, but you don't usually get too many people talking about these sorts of historical or mythological references in movies, so I really wanted to make a video about that. So let me know, did you notice this stuff? Did it mean anything to you? Is there something that I missed? You know, I think there's lots of symbolism in these movies. What did you see that I didn't pick up on? So I've already made one video on Furiosa, by the way, and a couple on Fury Road, so you should be able to see them on the screen now. So just click on any one of those if you want to hear more about what it is that I have to say on these kinds of movies. And yeah, I hope you like my little Mad Max in the corner there. Beyond that, I will wish you guys a good day. Thank you ever so much for getting to the end of this video, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.